What's going on, everyone? BouseFeenux here, and today I wanted to talk about quality of life in For Honor, and more specifically, some things that myself and the community as a whole would maybe like to see at some point in the game. Now, I know we all want class reworks, new maps, better servers, and the list goes on, but I think those things are farther down the line, and I wanted to focus on a couple of different things that could be better and maybe make our lives as players a little easier. So first up, let's talk about steel. There's an interesting article going around where a player tallied up what all of the cosmetics, emotes, and executions would cost, and if you were to buy everything in the game, it'd be in the neighborhood of around $700 worth of steel. I think the exact math to unlock all this stuff was 1,098,000 steel. So if you played every day for about 1 to 3 hours, which is about the amount of time that the average person has to play, it'd take you roughly 2.5 years to get this much steel without buying it. Now personally, I've seen free-to-play games with more forgiving models than this where it's easier to get in-game currency without paying, but For Honor is not a free-to-play game. It costs $60. Also, we're not even talking about leveling gear up or changing cosmetic appearances. Another awesome user on the competitive For Honor subreddit did the math on this. To level up all 6 pieces of gear on your character from level 13 to the max level of 18, you'd need about 9,450 steel and 15,780 salvage. Now, the salvage really isn't that bad because it's pretty easy to get, and by the time you get to rep 3 and even start getting level 13 gear, you should have a ton of it just by playing regular matches. The steel cost is pretty brutal though, not to mention that if you want to change the cosmetic appearance of any of your gear pieces, it's a whopping 500 steel per piece at the max level of 18, which in most cases is about 2 completed daily orders worth of steel or a whopping 5 contract orders to change the look of 1 piece of gear. So if you want to change the look of your whole set, that's going to be about 3,000 steel at the max level of 18. So what's the point to all this? What am I getting at? Well, an obvious suggestion, and one that I've seen a lot, is to increase the amount of steel you gain through playing. Honestly, what we get right now is pretty much a pittance. Even orders, some of which can take several hours to complete based on your skill level, don't really offer that much. And they only seem to offer about the same amount of steel regardless of difficulty. So you can correct me here if I'm wrong, but I think it's usually anywhere from 100 for a contract order to 300 steel per daily order. This is kind of crushing when you consider you can get the order to complete 5 elimination matches or get 50 takedowns in elimination matches and get the same reward for either of those. One of those is definitely easier to complete than the other, and let me remind you again that For Honor is a premium $60 game, folks. Another really popular suggestion I've seen is to let players use salvage, which we have tons of, to at least change the cosmetic looks between pieces of gear. Outside of leveling up gear, there really isn't anything you can do with salvage, and once you've got your main character geared, it's pretty much useless unless you want to level up another character from the same faction. Even so, once you've done that, salvage still accumulates in mountains with no real use. I think this is a great suggestion, and one that even makes sense in the game world. Plus, it's a great resource sink and gives us a reason to keep playing the same character long after we've gotten max level gear. You could keep a few different looking sets of armor and weapons to swap between and not have to worry about grinding for days just to do it. But in summary, increasing steel gain and using salvage for cosmetic swapping are the 2 main suggestions I've seen for the steel problem. Let me know in the comments if you guys have any other suggestions. Next up though, I wanted to take a look at how our game modes work. Has anyone else found it funny that gear is only active in 4v4 modes? Why is that? Also, why isn't there a 4v4 mode with gear turned off? Why isn't there a 1v1 mode and 2v2 mode with gear turned on? Personally, and I know this will never happen, but I think the game as a whole could be played with and without gear stats. Currently, to throw a bit of personal experience into it, I'm trying out Berserker as you can see in the footage here. This will be the 3rd character I'll have at a max gear score of 108 when I'm done with it, and to get there, it's been an absolute slog. Hours and hours of banging my head against a wall in Dominion against opponents who far outgear me. In some fights, it's been almost impossible to kill my opponent. I just don't have the damage gear to bring them down, and if I do manage to hit them too much, they get revenge, and I usually get 2 or 3 shotted. Now, it's not always like that, but it is really frustrating when there's a clear gear disparity. Anyway, rant aside, I think the main problem with this is that the best experience you can get is in Dominion by and far, and it makes sense. a Dominion match takes longer to play in most cases than just about any other game type, and there's a lot more going on. That being said though, the XP you get for playing the non-geared modes is laughable. You know, it's almost like Ubisoft is emphasizing the importance of gear. Who'd have thought? So anyway, we have a few solutions to this. 1, increase the XP gained in non-gear stat modes by a little. 2, add the ability to turn off gear stats in 4v4 modes. Like, we even have an option for this when we search for a game. It's just grayed out, like they were gonna add it, but at the last minute thought, nah, we want them to buy scavenger crates. Now, splitting up the game modes into geared and non-geared would probably segregate the game's player base massively. I don't think the geared modes would be very popular, and any kind of player separation is really bad for the longevity of a game. Still though, it's a solution. Not a very good one, but one we need to consider nonetheless. But that's really all I had for today. If there's something I missed or something you'd like to see me talk about in another video, let me know in the comments. Also, if you've got further suggestions for fixes based on the topic we covered today, I'm interested in hearing those as well. Until next time though, I'm BouseFeenux. I'll see you at the next video, and as always, thank you so much for watching.